Okay, welcome back to the second session. We will start now. Let me introduce our second keynote speaker today, Natalia Manola from Open Air, a non-profit pan-European e-infrastructure supporting scholarly communication and open science. I will not go into the details of your biography, but I will give you the floor to talk more about realizing interoperable end-to-end systems for efficient open scholarly communication. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Okay. I'm really happy to be in Zadar in Croatia. This is my first time in Croatia, and I think you know the country is very beautiful. So this is thank you, Bojan, and for inviting. Okay, so I'm going to be speaking about, somewhat about some thoughts and then somewhat about what we do to address these thoughts in open air. So for me, it's about how to providing end-to-end solutions for publishing. And I think, I'm looking at you because what you presented in the university and the open science team, I think this is the mentality that we want to see more and more. Just an introduction about Open Air and who we are in case, not everyone knows about us. So what we are is a scholarly communication infrastructure, e-infrastructure, that brings together two parts of the infrastructure, the technical one and the people, because we, from day one when we conceived the idea of this infrastructure, for us, people were one of the primary elements. And we are doing three things. One is aligning policies. We help our members to facilitate policies in their country, to align between them and with the EU. Then we operate services and offer training. As an organization, we are a member organization with headquarters in Greece. We have a European footprint, even though now we are expanding a bit. And our Croatian partner is the Institute of Ruder Bošković, if I pronounce it well. Okay. And lately, just to show you what we do, is we published our first strategy, because even though we have been operating for 10 years as a consortium, we're only a legal entity in the past 5 years. And in the last 3 years, we have tried to do the organization and put it forward. So I will just reiterate, so these things about here is what are their strategies. First of all is infrastructure. Second is, let me say, it's data quality, and all of this infrastructure requires a lot of data. So it's about qualities, how can we make it better. 3 is about the responsible research assessment as part of the open science. 4 is the innovation in publishing, and I think this is one of the topics that is being discussed in PubMed. And 5 is about how can we facilitate this monitoring and tracking of open science, so we can learn from each other and how we can utilize best practices. Now, how are we going to be transforming to an open scholarly communication ecosystem? Because indeed this is an ecosystem, and the truth is that it's very complex. We're talking about publications, but now research has moved on beyond publications, and researchers are dealing with, and institutions are dealing with a lot of things. So let me try to reiterate some facts. So, okay, then scholarly communication is a new era. This is not something new. But what we need to realize, and I think, this is again, I will be referring to the Finnish university, is that everything is digital, everything is big, but also everything is connected, and this connection we should not forget about it. Beyond publication is a must. So when we are talking about libraries, when we're talking about facilities at universities and research institutions, we need to think about what is coming in this digital intensive science, and this is very important. Then we're talking about not just about open science, having things about open access, but we're talking about reproducibility. This is about ethics, this is about accountability, this is about transparency. So open science is the vehicle, but what do we want to achieve with this? And of course there is an AI, and when we are talking about text and even data, we're talking about now generative AI. It's the silent, it's the thing on the corner, on the silent that we see ChatGPT. But what we need to say is that with open science, we can achieve many things, and especially to think about how we can build infrastructure for science, for AI and generative AI, not just services, but the infrastructure. And then last but not least is that as we see this, the researchers and the institutions, what they see is that the research life is interconnected, from planning to doing your research, to managing your data, to publishing, everything is interconnected. And then when you're being open in these phases, each of these phases, when you're open, somehow affects the other. So this is the one message that I want to convey, the interconnection. Then second fact is that I think we have started from fragmentation and silos, and somehow we are not able to move beyond them. Because what we see, for example, in open access publishing, what we see is we have the APCs in open access, we have the DIMON open access, we have the Open Research Europe. So there are many things there, and it seems that the community is just going into different tangents, and we cannot agree on how to do it. And I have to say that there is not one way that is best. We need to try and perhaps fail or succeed in many, but somehow we need to have some common understanding of where we want to go. Is it the costs that we care about? Is it the access? Is it the transparency? What are our objectives and priorities? Then we're talking about publishing processes like open peer review. I've been into the discussions in open peer review, and I know that there are many layers of open peer review and many flavors, but there is no a common understanding. So what does open peer review mean? Is it being completely open, half open, somewhat open, on the receiving end? Then there are the policies. So we have institutional policies, thematic, domain specific, national policies for repositories. We have a policy that people could be deposit in Zlodi. So what is this? And then of course, we're trying to build decentralized infrastructure, okay? So this fragmentation and silos is, yes, this is what we want to do. We want to have a sustainable, decentralized, but we understand that there are many players, and we understand there is a public and commercial. We are wearing this lanyard by Elsevier, and I can see other people in the room. So commercial players do have a role. The idea is, how can we work together? What is, a win-win situation for everyone? Then the other question that we have is infrastructure versus services, because in open air we're building an infrastructure and we're building services. So what is the difference? We have a very hard time understanding what it is. And what I would like to say is that, as you're building your repositories, as you're building your services, you're building part of the infrastructure. And then what is important is that when you're building it, publishing services for DIMON open access, repositories, discovery services, assessment services, this is to everyone's interest to connect with the others. Then we're building a global infrastructure, a European and a global infrastructure that we can all, abide to, and then we can look to. There are many challenges, again, the public-private partnerships, what is the best way to work together? And for public infrastructure is that what is clear or non-clear is that there is no there is lack of a business models for departments of 70 people. You know, why should a rector give 70 people to pay to do open science unless they have a very clear objective that they want to do open science, and you know that open science will bring A, B, and C in their institution. And this is, you know, this is one of the key things of how you're building your services, how you're buying your services if needed, and how, you know, when you're building and buying, how you're connecting with the others. And then last but not least, I will say that I had prepared the slides before I heard this presentation, is that we usually, in most cases, we do not include our researchers in the co-design. We just present them with something, you know, and we have them to test it out. So we understand in this infrastructure from end to end, there are many players involved, from funders, policymakers, institution, libraries, but researchers, you know, we have the libraries as proxy to the researchers, and this is what is missing. And at the end of the day, the researchers, you know, they want different things, but they don't want to be bothered. They don't want to be bothered with all this terminology. What is a diamond open access? What is an APC? What is a repository? Why should I, you know, deposit on the repository since I'm doing on the archive? What the, you know, the best example is that, you know, the researcher would like to build, you know, to deposit on archive, and somehow automatically this goes into their institutional repository. So they want this simplicity. And as a community, as an open science expert community, I think we're making it hard for them. But you know, this is, you know, this is we can think of possible solutions. First of all, you know, the most obvious is to connect the different pieces together into operation, and this is what I'm talking about, is we say innovative publishing models. I think, you know, everyone is looking at these innovative things, you know, either on the technical or on the business models things, but I think, you know, we can have small advancements that could make a big difference, so we can think about it, is to focus on quality, not, you know, it doesn't have, you know, start small and focus on quality. Co-create and building communities, the people that I said before, is super important. Then skilled, you know, people in skilled. And then what we need to do as public, now I'm speaking as a public infrastructure, you know, being funded by the Commission and hopefully member states, is that we need to follow a balanced approach, you know, between marketing and community. Because, you know, we need to have this professional delivery of our services, you know, even starting from the look and feel, from the 100% uptime for the 48 response time in our queries, everything, but then we cannot lose this community approach, so we cannot turn into businesses, but we have to somehow do this balance. And now, after I've said all of this, I will just give you an idea of what we're doing in Open Air. So in Open Air, we have been delivering services from 2009, and we have been adding services as we go along. And, you know, one service, you know, because somebody had an idea or we saw the need, so we have a suite of services. And what we are proud to say is that these services are, you know, they're not just for researchers like Zenodo or Amnesia or some of the services, but they are for all, for institutions, for libraries, for funders. One of the first things that we did, and this has been working the last 2 or 3 years, is to see, you know, okay, we have a bunch of services, but many people do not understand actually what Open Air does. So what we're trying to do is to ingest a bit of this marketing thing here, is we need to understand, you know, how our services fit in this research life cycle. So we got this wheel, and we, I don't remember, I think it was Brahms, or, you know, I don't remember who this wheel was, but we adapted it. And then what we did is, you know, we have a simpler wheel to have on this research life cycle, we placed our services. This is one of the best understanding for us as an organization, but also as to sell to the institutions. So when you're planning, you know, you need some skills, and You need Argos as a DMP. When you're doing, I can see that you need to discover, you need to explore, and so forth. So we have this wheel of services, and this has been very, very crucial and important for the understanding. And not only how to, how each individual service works, but how they are, how you're creating a value chain. And this is what you need to do when you are setting your, your libraries, your digital center in the university or whatever. You need to understand how the cycle works. And once we do that, it's easier to serve the researchers, to serve our customers, if you want. Then the second is about interoperability. We have been working from 2005 on these guidelines for content providers. Now everyone is talking about metadata and metadata. So this is, so in OpenAIRE we have the OpenAIRE guidelines for literature repositories, for data repositories, now for software, because it's becoming a hot topic, at least at the European level, for CRIS systems and usage statistics. So these guidelines are just, metadata schemata plus best practices on how to share and how to do. And this has been one of the key instruments in our work. So, and then I have my last slide, because I don't know how I'm doing with time, is I can take you through how we view the world, okay? So now, in OpenAIRE, we are a European infrastructure trying to connect existing infrastructure from institutions and national infrastructures, and then to provide value-added services. So so this infrastructure is there. We're talking about open access journals, repositories, CRIS systems. We're talking about research infrastructures that they're building their catalogs, of course Zenodo, and services like Episciences or Science, I think somehow it's called in French. So this is not ours. This exists out there. We help them. What we do is we try to connect them. So we have the OpenAIRE guidelines, which is setting the compliance of data sources so they can exchange. So we have this, and then we have a few services. If you come to OpenAIRE Provide, where you can register your data source, then we can validate, you can share the usage data, and then the process starts. Until now, I have to say that we have, because we wanted to be all-inclusive, we wanted to include everyone. So no matter if your metadata was not good, we would do the transformations and accept everyone in OpenAIRE. Now things are changing because this has been a very costly resource, and then we want to push everyone who has these resources to abide to the rules. And this is something that the European Open Science Cloud in Europe brings. So this is, I think it's time to move on to the next level. Then we have the OpenAIRE graph, which is one of our major assets in OpenAIRE. From repositories, but we don't stick there. We get information from all these sources and a few more that I didn't want to get the slide. But so we have, from Crossref, from ROR. So there is a lot of data crunching while we are producing this OpenAIRE graph. And then at the end is we're starting to build services. So one of the services, through APIs, you can download the graph either from Zenodo or through APIs, you can access parts of the graph. We have this OpenAIRE Explorer, which is a search engine, and we will be trying to make it, more, a bit more to address the needs. Then we have a framework for assessment of open science, open science policies, open science infrastructures, and we have a few services that monitor dashboards for funders and institutions. We have we are now building the European Open Science Observatory, and then we have services like OpenAIRE Connect, which is addresses the needs of particular research communities. And now we participate in a project that we are building open science profiles for assessment for institutions, funders, and researchers. So this is, so if you can see is that we started from the guidelines and what is existing out there. We're making a lot of effort in this interaction. So the idea is how this can be improved. So our work gets easier, and not just our work, everyone's work. And then we have front-facing services. So for example, a funder doesn't have to know about the graph, but they can have access to a monitor. An institution, we have, through this framework of open access indicators, we have these kind of services. But we do not stop there. So one of the things that we are doing now, and in collaboration with IRB, is Open Orgs. So Open Orgs is a front face where somebody can, the experts from the country, the experts from an institution, they can come and claim duplicates for their organization's IDs. And once we have that, of course, we pass it back to ROR, but also we ingest in the graph, because, an organization, for example, if you look at ROR, it has, University of X, and then it has Department Y of University of X. It has, in different names. It's all over the place. So we have a front-facing for our members to curate the data. Then we have Argos, which is a data management plan. And as we're moving to machine actionability in DMPs, and this is the case, it's going to be very much, I wouldn't say integrated to OpenAir Graph, but interoperate. So you put things in DMP when you're planning your, when you're planning your data management. So you say, through Zenodo, through XYZ, we have APIs, and because all of the information is in the graph, we can automatically evaluate through hopefully the push of a button. And then last but not least is that because in OpenAir Graph, and I told you about this data crunching that we're deduplicating, we're enriching metadata, we're doing stuff, what we would like is to pass this information back to the repositories or to the journals. So if a repository or a journal or any data source subscribes to OpenAir Provide, they can say, okay, I want to see events that have to do with my records. And in this case, you can get notifications about, better metadata, for example, or linked things. So, you can get, we have a whole service around it, which is really great. So this somehow closes that cycle. And this is our approach. And I have to say, it's not very easy. We rely a lot, again, I will say that for the 10th time, on this local infrastructure. This is why I think, what Kathleen said and everything is, about interoperability is super important. And then we hopefully, at least in Europe, and then we would like to work with other people around the world, is to have, public infrastructures that, they can offer to our needs, they can serve our needs, researcher needs, or they can search whoever, wants to use the services. And of course, this is, from the end user perspective, and now I'm talking the EOSC, the European Open Science language, is everything, we would like ideally in the end for everyone to log in using either their ORCID or their institutional accounts. So like EduRoam, you go into one place and do that. So now it's federated and it's not a single sign-on. So there is a difference I learned these past 2 years in the way. But I think, this is how, we should think about it. So whenever you're doing a DSpace on your, or Node.js on your institution, it would be best if you can link it to the European AAI system. So, people just get to learn that. And then, the vision that we may have in the future is to think about, my research wallet. Probably in many countries, you have this my wallet where you have all of these things, all of your services, research outcomes, but think about a My Researcher wallet to say, that, this is your personal space and you have access to infrastructures on the back. And this is the vision, and I think, this is how we should go about it. Was I over time? Okay, good. Thank you.
And
so, thank you.
And this is the time to ask you questions. So if
yes.
anyone from the audience has something.
And you can see I put this X. I usually had Twitter, and this X doesn't, you know, it's not, it's not nice, is it?
So we have to adjust to a new name.
It's not nice.
Okay, maybe I can ask something if not. Oh, there is one, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hello, again, Tibersi from Scientific Knowledge Services. Thank you for this presentation. It's very useful. So, of course, I think everyone in the room knows open air for a long time. I think you should have actually existed 30 years ago as a public infrastructure and to be supported by the member states, not only by EU and things like this. So being a public infrastructure, I think it's extremely hard, much harder than a private infrastructure. You have to bring satisfaction to so many stakeholders instead of a private infrastructure doesn't have this problem to bring satisfaction to so many. They are managing more dissatisfaction. But one thing is, for me, I'm coming from a private company. And
You're coming from where?
Scientific knowledge, SKS Knowledge Services, scientific knowledge. And I fully support such a public infrastructure. I think a lot of things belongs to a public infrastructure. From my point of view, and I apologize to the audience, maybe not everyone is coming from a private. I am thinking if such a public infrastructure is offered, but you also offer some services inside of it. I know that you are aware and that you want to be inclusive. So what is your vision to have this, to build this public infrastructure? And I wish you a lot of success. You also put services to leave it inclusive and competitively open to everyone that could bring a service of a value that is recognized indiscriminately.
Can I say, I think you're right, and this is what, you know, I said in the beginning, what is the public-private relationship, and because we don't have it clear. For open air, I can speak only for open air. So there are services that you can do here, so somebody can have, you know, service, you know, this space. It was a service, so you can have a repository as a service, right? And then, you know, it's up to the institutions, you know, it's like cloud as a service, you can have repository as a service. Then here you can have not much here, you can have things here, but your services should be able to link to the public infrastructure. Those services, I wouldn't want to have any of them in open air, but we had to, because when we talked about the graph, people did not understand. So, you know, are the monitoring, you know, the best services that we have? I think they're very good. You know, could they be better? Yes. So this is where the, you know, companies can start and build services, because I can offer a dashboard, but I cannot offer the support, you know, to the individual institution to discuss about things. So this is the idea. But this part here must remain public, because it's a content, and content should be freely available. That's how I would see it.
Thank you. Are there more questions from the audience? No. Okay, maybe maybe shortly. Yeah. You've showed us these different elements of infrastructure, and you've talked, and there were questions before about the reforming research assessment. So can you assess briefly how ready is this infrastructure that is currently in place for such a radical change in perspective, and does that vary across Europe? So what would you say?
So this, you know, there is infrastructure for research assessment, because we are a member of QARA, and we are starting now a working group. So we got approved in the first round, is open infrastructures for research assessment. So we have Open Air, we have Eiffel, we have Koki, we have all the, you know, all players that are building infrastructure and players that are using this infrastructure. So in many cases, what I can say in open air is that we are ready on the research outcomes. So if you want to come to open air and see what is open, what is not, what is fair, what is not, we will be there in about a year time to have, you know, more robust services due to a European things or GRASP-OS service. Where you are judging open science and practices, okay, have I delivered, have I participated in citizen science? Have I contributed to open source code? This, we will put a framework in this GRASP-OS. We will see what, how we can measure. But the only thing that we can work with is to have, individual researcher profiles that can give the narrative. So we will do the narrative using generative AI and all of these things, and also allow individual researchers to come and fill in their profile. So, but the problem is, the way I see it, is that we will do a service at the European level. If a researcher comes and tells us, I've done this spectacular thing, we cannot really validate. I think these services, we can pilot them at the European level, and then they have to go down at the institutional level where the libraries and the people, they know. This is because, or we can have one service with many, and provide it as a service. So we are getting there. And hopefully this QUADA working group, we will discuss, because open air is just one of the players, and this has to be global. So in this QUADA working group, we are set to be discussing, what is an open infrastructure, what are the principles, what are the governance, and how can it serve? I hope this has responded to your question.
Yeah, yes, it has.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you very much for the presentation. We will now continue the session with the short talks. So I would like to invite Elio Pellin, who will speak on behalf of, in his name and in the name of Dirk Verdicchio, if I pronounced it well. You come from the library of the University of Bern, and you are engaged in a Craft-OA project. So in your presentation, we will hear more about the activities and goals of this project. So, well.
I hope so, yes. And thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about our contribution to Craft-OA. In our open science team, among other things, we run two publishing platforms, one for scholar-led diamond journals and one for open access books. And as you said, we are part of Craft-OA. And we will contribute two things to Craft-OA. First is we will make a CTA, a constructive technological assessment. So we will study the consequences of technical changes, but I will not talk about that today. I will talk about the interviews and the workshops we are making and we are planning. Craft-OA, as you might know, is a EU-funded project to improve technical infrastructure of diamond open access. And if you like more information about Craft-OA, I recommend the poster session this afternoon. So what we are planning. Our goal is to provide feedback to Craft-OA to better understand the needs of platform providers and editors, in addition to DIAMAS. DIAMAS is a sister project which improves the non-technical aspect of diamond publishing, and also for DIAMAS there will be a poster presentation this afternoon. So we made 11 semi-structured interviews with editors and platform providers from the West, the North, the Center, and the Southeast of Europe. And they will allow us, and they allowed open and very detailed responses. We will write a report, and afterwards we will make 2 workshops to discuss the results of our interviews. The topics of our interviews were hosting, submission and reviews, production metrics, indexing, archiving, finance, and quality management. So we just finished the transcriptions of these 11 interviews. So I can't deliver tons of results, but I can give you an example of how we work and what could come out of these interviews. We chose indexing as an example for this short presentation. And as we all know from our daily work, indexing is important for editors and platform providers. That's no surprise, and this impression is confirmed by many studies and surveys. For example, this one here published last year about the needs of editors. You see here, if I find the right button. I don't know. Indexing is on the 3rd place together with abstracting. And also we have a study recently published about OA diamond publishing in Switzerland. Indexing is on 2nd place. It's the hardly visible bar on the right. And by the way, the biggest concern for diamond journals in Switzerland is funding. As you might guess, there is some money for open access publishing in Switzerland, but obviously it doesn't go to the diamond journals. It goes elsewhere. That's another story. I would like to continue with the needs of the publishing platforms and editors. And you see here one example of an answer to our question, why is indexing important for editors and platform providers? This platform provider answered that if a journal isn't indexed in important databases, researchers could avoid a journal, and it would be difficult to get new and interesting articles. The second answer from an editor with a slightly different perspective. She says if journals don't participate in major indexes, they will provincialize themselves. And her own goal is to be with her journal as prestigious as the journals in with the big publishers. So indexing is crucial. That's no surprise. And we have 2 scenarios for Craft.OA. The first one is information and skills training, and the second, an automated indexing via a database solution. To decide which scenario is closer to the needs of the editors and the platform providers, we have to look at the problems they have. Problem 1. One editor said what she knows about indexing is what her provider told her, and he told her that you cannot submit your journal to those lists. She's talking about lists, and she means indexing. Another editor confused metrics and indexes, and that reminds us that we have to take in account that although they are publishing scientific journals, they are not necessarily publishing specialists. So we have to reconsider that when we are talking about our services. The second editor didn't know the criteria of an indexing service. They were not disclosed. And suddenly his journal was indexed in Web of Science, but he didn't know why. So we have a lack of information, we have obscure workflows, and we have a time lag. It takes time when the platform provider has to work together with his journals to find out which indexes are important for this specific journal. Time means resources, means money. And another platform provider said it's up to the journals themselves. They just do DOA.ie, and every other index is up to the journal. But as we know, they don't know how it's to be done and what is needed. And we all know that some of the editors like publishing and they like being empowered in publishing, but their main goal is editing, reviewing, and publishing. They need assistance. So we have responsibilities which are not defined, and we have a lack of resources. So to come to the end of my presentation, our recommendations to Craft.OA. Publication services should clarify the responsibilities, and we recommend an automatical export of metadata from diamond journals to important indexes to compensate the lack of resources. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. And we will take questions at the end of the session. So please, Jane Mahony is our next speaker and presenter. Jane is a researcher working with on a Publish.OA.ie project by National Open Research Forum of Ireland. So that is a very interesting project that has recently started, and you will tell us more about it. So please go on.
Great, thank you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here in Croatia, in Zadar. It's probably a very good thing the curtains are drawn, because I can't think of a more beautiful aula magna anywhere in the world with that view outside. It's just a joy. We're quite early on in the Publish.OA project. It's end 2022. And in fact, getting started with recruitment and ethics review was probably slower than we expected. I suspect that's a universal experience. So our objective is to conduct a community-led feasibility study for a comprehensive, publicly owned and centralized diamond open access infrastructure for Ireland for journals and books, north and south, so across 2 jurisdictions. And I'll come to the project objectives in more detail, but very quickly there to research and map the existing landscape. That's done. We've produced a digital directory of Irish publishing, which is now available, to benchmark internationally, to deliver a set of technical and non-technical specifications. That's underway, to test a pilot platform. That's ongoing, and to publish a set of recommendations at the end of the project. We've 10 partners and 8 affiliates drawn from the island of Ireland, co-led by the Royal Irish Academy and my own institution, Trinity College Dublin, our Arts and Humanities Research Institution. And given that the RIA was founded in 1785 and Trinity in 1592, it's great to be involved in a project that's looking so much to the future. Among our affiliates, I'd draw attention to advice we're getting from Norway, the Netherlands and Finland, who've been extremely helpful, and Queen's University in Belfast, which of course is part of the United Kingdom. And the United Kingdom is so much further ahead than the Republic of Ireland in terms of open access. Just briefly, and I'll come to how it breaks down, but this was the map of Irish publishing that came out of our directory, north and south. And you can see heavy concentrations in both Dublin and Belfast, much less concentration everywhere else around the universities. We're not operating in a vacuum. We are looking internationally, DMS, Coalition S, MIT, UNESCO. We're looking at funding models, including JISC. And as I said, we're getting advice from opaljournals.nl and journal.fi. To sum up our objectives, really, it is that we want to, sorry, what have I done? I think I probably, I beg your pardon. I've done something with the keyboard. There we go. Okay, we'll come back here. To sum up, really, we have found in our survey of publishers so far that there are pretty extensive knowledge gaps among stakeholders, and they're pretty well across the board. It's not so much that we're finding among scholars that they understand one element quite well, they don't understand an element, another element, same with publishers. It is actually that there are large gaps. And I think Natalia's contribution was very good, that sometimes perhaps we need to simplify and to make things more straightforward for stakeholders. In terms of our deliverables, the digital directory has been now made available. The national set of principles and protocols is underway. That's in draft. It'll be publicly available on our website for anyone who wants to look at it, as will the platform report and the national set of publishing principles for publishers. The publisher engagement side is very important, that we'll produce a mentoring and support program in collaboration with publishers, because as I mentioned, there are gaps in knowledge among the publishers. The expected platform spec, I draw attention to author copyright retention, no APCs, and Plan S compliance. Our webinar partners to date, Netherlands and Finland, and these are the 6 platforms we're currently testing. The COCO Foundation have presented to us on Cartahi and Kahida, Manifold and Janeway, and the Public Knowledge Project, both on OJS and OMP. We're also looking at technical parameters for 7 more platforms. A comparative study of the technical details for the 6 platforms will be made available, hopefully later on this autumn, and will be available on our website. I would just say, in terms of the great assistance we've had from the Netherlands and Finland, that they've been extremely helpful in giving us a wide range of their experience, from everything from the technical side to future planning and funding. And a couple of interesting points in particular came out. The Dutch platform provides greater technical support than perhaps the Finnish one, but that comes at a cost, a higher cost. And the Netherlands also told us that the journal published, the academics, the universities are happy with their the commercial journal service they're getting at the moment. They've high expectations, and they want those expectations to continue to be met. They also want to see evidence of a long-term plan and long-term funding that is sustainable, that's not in any way ad hoc or patchy. So the landscape in Ireland looks like this. We have 51 academic and scholarly professional body journals. The majority are single journal publishers. So it might be a professional or trade body just producing its annual journal. The Royal Irish Academy is the largest publisher, but that's still only 6 journals, 3 STEM, 3 HSS, and 6 universities publish journals from separate departments, and they range from a single journal to 5 maximum. Oops. In terms of journals outside Ireland, some very high-level Irish journals are published by university presses and commercial presses. You can see the Irish Historical Studies, Cambridge University Press. And this points to an absolute fact of Irish publishing and the Irish scholarly environment, that our connections with the UK are very, very strong. I talked about the north-south environment working with Northern Ireland, but for us, the east-west ecosystem is also extremely important. And that's really not going to change. Those journals are going to remain published in the UK, and we're going to have to, as it were, work with that. See if I can go forward here. This comes of trying to do it with paper. I'm sorry, were you? I'm stuck again. Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll go back to. And again, looking at the situation with monographs, we have 11 publishers of scholarly monographs in Ireland, but the vast majority, and I mean the vast majority of Irish interest monographs are outside Ireland. So the key challenges, I want to point, if we take the first 4 points together, it is this east-west connection that we want to create an all-Ireland platform, but that means sharing with 2 jurisdictions, the United Kingdom and Ireland. And since Brexit, of course, which we really don't want to talk so much about, we know that the UK is no longer bound by EU directives. However, it is encouraging to see a détente in relationships, the UK returning to Horizon. But we do need to think about scenarios where Irish academics working in Irish universities, funded by the Irish government, might want to publish in the UK. Who owns the copyright there? How do we do that? How do we enter into contracts? And vice versa, UK academics. And we're seeing an increasing trend, particularly among British universities, for the universities themselves to license the authors and what authors can do. We have to think about sustainable public funding for the future. Like many other countries, our sector is not well funded. Bibliodiversity is important. We have a lot of small publishers, and we also need to support Irish language publishing, which is important to us, and it's an area that has been growing but needs a lot of support. And this is my last slide. One of the key findings so far is that book and journal publishers are looking for completely different specifications for their Diamond Open Access publishing, and therefore we will likely adopt 2 platforms. We didn't anticipate this at the outset of the project, so we need to adapt to that. We need to work on academic institution buy-in to a centralized platform. The universities already have institutional repositories that they work well with. Publisher engagement. Irish publishers are very time and resource poor, particularly in human resources. We share everybody else's issues with peer review and quality control. In terms of future-proofing with broken links, link rot, content drift. I don't know how other countries compare, but historically, despite the excellent work of the Digital Repository of Ireland, we have a very high level of link rot. Born digital government documents would be very high in that respect. And then finally, we need to work, of course, on academic and author buy-in. We're finding large knowledge gaps, a desire, as Natalia expressed so well, for simplification. So work done and more work to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jane. Again, questions will come later. And now our last presentation, and we are amazingly on time. Our last presentation will be from Isabella Meinecke, Thomas Severiens, and Daniel Beucke, if you will correct me, my pronunciation, from Staatsuniversitätsbibliothek Hamburg, Karl von Osiecki, and you will present us DINIvolution, the DINI certificate for open access publishing service. So we will continue with this issue of open access publishing in this session, and please go.
Thank you for this kind introduction and for organizing this conference here in this nice city of Zadar. I'm here, I like to be here. It's the third time I'm in Zadar. The first time wasn't so nice. That was in 1993 when I was at the airport as a soldier during the war. The second time was nice. That was in 2009 for a leader conference, which took place exactly here in this room. And this is the third time, and I enjoy to be here in this nice city, and I plan to come back. And as you recognize, it was 16 years the first time, it's 14 years, and now I plan to come back in 12 years. So you have to organize enough and many more PubMet conferences so I can come here in 2035. Welcome. Welcome to everybody here in this room. Welcome to everyone who is sharing our Zoom channel today. I learned there are many people looking to the presentations, and thank you to the organizers for making all these slides available and these talks available online later on the webpage and on YouTube. And I spared some room on the slides so the people in YouTube later on can view the video together with the slides. I'm talking here on behalf of not only 3 authors, but also of a group, which is the Working Group for Electronic Publishing of DINI. DINI is the German initiative for network information, and it is a more or less national group of people taking care about all aspects of electronic publishing, of teaching, of universities, of infrastructure in universities. And open access is one of the most important infrastructure things that we have in universities. DINIvolution, so the evolution of this DINI thing, is the evolution of the DINI certificate. Well, this is an overview of what I want to show. The DINI certificate is being published since 2004. Every three years, we come up with a new certificate, certifying more or less in these days open access publication services, which is repositories in the most cases. And why do we do that? In 2004, the motivation was quite easy. We came up with several projects dealing to make infrastructure on top of the repositories, which is to have a search across, to have some statistics across, and all these things. And when you do that, you find out there are so many incompliance between the repositories in detail. When you do that, that it's a nice idea to write up what are the best practices to set up a repository and which interfaces, technical interfaces, they at least need to have. And so we came up with this certificate. Let me start with this slide first. So today the certificate contains 71 minimum requirements that you have on the technical level, on the organizational level, on a repository that is of ideal standard. And there are some more recommendations which are nice to have or give a view in the future how to develop. And we write them down in 11 aspects. And these aspects are, well, starting from the visibility of the service, saying there needs to be an HTTPS server making it available. Yeah, that is a minimum thing you have to have, and it is so well, basic, but it has to be written down somewhere. Or there are guidelines, so you have to write down to the authors, what are you doing and what are you handling these things to? You need to give some support to the authors. There needs to be someone responsible you can call. You have to give a telephone number or an address where to contact people. There are legal aspects. So what are you doing? Are you transferring copyright? Are you publishing Diamond, or are you doing something different? You have to write it down. And what will happen in the long term? Long-term archiving is one of the things that we have also as an aspect. So it is not a good idea to do long-term archiving on the university level, but you have to do it on the institutional, international level. So there are experts for that, mostly the national libraries. Of course, there are something like information security aspects. Yeah, so where to run a repository server, not on a computer somewhere in an office. Yeah, you have to have this in a professional computer center with a locked door. And you have to deal with data security of your authors and of the users. And one thing that is, well, the most complicated thing, and that's why I'm here, is to have an exchange interface. Exchange interface means, in our case, OA.ie PMH, Open Archives Protocol for Metadata Harvesting. You need to have this to exchange your objects in the repository with other repository service providers. So, and of course, well, this is why are we doing this? We are doing this, and that's our motivation to develop a context of trusted and professional publishing services. We try to standardize and support the OAI, Open Archive Publishing. And of course, our goal is to increase the impact and of course also the sustainability of our services. So we are doing this because we want to make it a long-term service. So we care about the quality and about the safety. So we try to implement international standards, so people are not requested when they set up a repository to scan through all the international standards, because there are so many of them, but they can scan across the DINI certificate text, which is available in German and English language, and they will find what to do when setting up a repository. And of course, there is this question of interoperability and, well, connectivity and network. So what I wanted to show you is this thing of the Open Archives interface, because you can, of course, when setting up a repository, when getting a view what is inside a repository, when making services on top of them, it is of course always possible to scan about the metadata sets for 1, 10, or 20 of the documents, the objects inside. But it is impossible to scan through all of them. Do all objects inside a repository have an author or an editor or at least a title? No one knows. And for that, we developed a validator which checks on the XML level, on the OAI PMH level, and on the metadata level. All these three levels of the OAI PMH interface are checked in that, and this validator is very easy to use. You fill in an address, you fill in how much to check, and you want to get an email with the results, because checking of big repository will take some time. This is funded by the German Research Foundation and is operated by the PUBMET. And well, the results look like this. You can see it on the slides online later on in detail, and including the address and everything. And of course, we find here something where it says, well, 18% of the objects do have a rights element. Well, DC rights says, what are the legal aspects of these objects? And for no one knows if 18% or 100%, well, that's a difference. The out view, and that's the last slide of my presentation, the next certification version will come in 2025, where this is a text which is also of high interest of everyone also outside Germany, because currently we are only certifying repositories inside Germany and Austria because of the legal aspects that has to be implemented in the certification text. Well, we are in the process of re-implementing the application form, and the back office is part of the application form, so that is also re-implemented. We are on the change over from German as the first language of the certificate to English, and then translate into the national languages. And of course, chapter 4, which is the legal aspects, must be adopted to the respective legal systems of the countries that are joining our group. Currently, we are on the German, Austrian, and Switzerland level, but everyone else is welcome. And we are opening for other forms of publications, which is coming up with research data, etc. So that's it. I hope I was in time, and if you have questions, well, we are open for questions now.
Yes, we are. And I've noticed we have, yeah, thank you very much. We have a little bit of discrepancy between the online program and the printed program, but we definitely have some time before lunch for discussion, and we already have questions. So Natalia, you already have a mic.
Yes, so I wanted to ask you about the DINI certification. So you said you have it for publication repositories, but you're extending to data. How is this related to this core trust seal of certification? And I'm pretty sure you're aware of that.
Thank you very much for this question. Core, well, DINI is a member of Core, and we are dealing with that on this level. So we are trying to come up with additional with additional kinds of publications that can be filled in, and so repositories that are of many forms. But it is a long way to convince library people to accept the level of not the publication, but of the work. Yeah, that is what we are discussing about. Though it seems to be on the level of vocabulary and wording, but it is, in the end, it is really hard work to do, and you know this from your work.
So again, a question about OI-PMH. You were mentioning that you also defined additional requirements. So are you, in a sense, also suggesting ways to improve the expressivity of OI-PMH, which unfortunately is semantically poor?
Yes, thank you. I have to, well, to answer this question, I have to tell you that there are 3 levels. The basic level is the XML level. We can check if XML is correctly used, and that's the thing. There's OAI PMH 2.0 as the level which is implemented in XML, and we can check if that has been implemented. So the all this handling of and timeouts and so on are implemented in the correct way. And on this level, inside the OAI PMH, you can fill in metadata, and that is the DINI level. So that is a metadata level that is making use of OA.ie PMH, which is making use of XML, and we are, this validator checks all 3 levels. So there are already validators for OA.ie PMH 2.0, so we did not try to re-implement this, but we make use, and this validator checks all 3 levels, but it is made in the first hand to check if repositories use the metadata with, well, in the way that we are describing the DINI certificate. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. I'm afraid that now it is time to leave for lunch. You will now have time to ask questions in person and to talk about your topics.